Thomas felt like a parasite standing there, with Caleb pointing a finger directly in his face, claiming Thomas had stolen a spot that rightfully belonged to him. Thomas was ready to snap back, but his wife Sarah moved with a speed he hadn't expected. In one fluid motion, she kicked Caleb so hard he flew backward. Everyone had always whispered that Thomas was just a placeholder, a temporary stand-in. Even Thomas had started to believe it, assuming he was just waiting for the day he'd be kicked to the curb with a check large enough to make the humiliation worthwhile. But now, as this one that got away threatened him, his billionaire CEO wife had sent the man flying several feet with the heel of her designer shoe. While Thomas was still calculating if this trophy husband gig had been profitable enough to end now, Sarah simply scoffed. She calmly called for security to give her old flame the taser treatment. "Sarah, stop throwing a tantrum," Caleb whined, his finger practically touching Thomas's nose again as he scrambled up. "You married this average Joe just to piss me off, to get me to come back to you, didn't you?" He looked at Thomas with a condescending smirk. "Well, you got what you wanted. I'm here. Divorce him, and we'll get married tomorrow." His arrogant tone made Thomas's blood boil. They were actually living out a classic love triangle storyline. Thomas stared at the man claiming to be Sarah's true love, his mind racing. A divorce actually sounded great. Sarah was the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. If they split, Thomas wondered if he'd get $10 million. He could spend the rest of his life doing absolutely nothing. The anger vanished, replaced by a flicker of genuine excitement. He thought back over the last 8 months, which had felt like a bizarre dream. Thomas had been a regular guy, 3 years out of college, stuck in a dead-end job. His parents had been nagging him to get married, pushing him into one blind date after another. Who could have imagined that one of those dates would be with the legendary Sarah Reed? Even more insane, she actually seemed to like him. They dated for less than 3 months before getting married in a whirlwind ceremony. The first thing Sarah did after the wedding was force him to quit his job. "You don't need that pathetic job anymore," she had said. "I'll support you." Thomas had reluctantly agreed, and being a kept man was sweet. He slept in, played video games, and had a credit card with no limit. Of course, relatives made snide remarks, saying Sarah would eventually get bored and toss him aside. At the office, employees looked at him funny, especially Sarah's assistant, Julian, who hinted that Thomas was just a substitute for the real deal. "Sarah, stop with the games." Caleb's voice interrupted Thomas's thoughts. "If you keep this up, I'm going to get angry. This is your only chance to marry me. Are you coming or not?" Sarah, who had been watching with a cold stare, finally laughed. It was a laugh laced with ridicule and ice. "Wow, you are impressively full of yourself. To use internet terms, you're a textbook case of unearned confidence. Why on earth would I marry someone to make you jealous? You think I like you? Me marry you? Are you worthy?" She paused, her red lips parting. "You're pathetic." Caleb's face turned purple. Before he could finish a sentence, Sarah turned, wrapped her arms around Thomas's neck, and pulled his face toward hers. Her warm lips crashed onto his. A collective gasp went through the lobby. Thomas's brain short-circuited as the kiss deepened, dominant and possessive. When she finally pulled away, she pointed at Caleb, who was now being approached by security. "Get this trash out of my building," she commanded. "Memorize his face. If he ever sets foot here again, you have my permission to use your tasers." Caleb was dragged out like a sack of garbage. Sarah, the terrifying ice queen, turned to Thomas with a hint of nervousness. She grabbed his hand tight. "Thomas, don't overthink this. There's nothing between Caleb and me. We were introduced by our families a long time ago. That's it." Seeing her so desperate to explain, Thomas felt a secret thrill. Was his billionaire wife afraid he'd leave? He squeezed her hand back. "It's okay. I trust you." Inside, he was thinking that as long as the money was good, he wasn't going to complain. That evening, Sarah came home on time with ribeye steaks. She pushed him onto the sofa, tied on an apron, and disappeared into the kitchen. After a romantic candlelit dinner and a movie, they retired to their massive bed. As Thomas moved to his side, Sarah climbed on top of him, straddling his waist. "This way," she whispered huskily. "You'll have no doubt that I'm all yours." The next day, Thomas woke up at noon with a sore back. "This woman is an animal," he muttered, though he felt content. That afternoon, Sarah messaged him. "Craving that place I took you to last time." Thomas replied, "Roger that," and headed out, feeling like a top-tier kept man. A block from the restaurant, Caleb blocked his path again. He looked worse than yesterday, with bloodshot eyes. "Stop right there," Caleb barked. "You little leech. You actually have the nerve to go out alone? Get the hell away from Sarah Reed. You're in my spot." Caleb's insults toward Thomas's family finally lit a fire. Thomas stopped and stared coldly. "Are you done?" "What, scared?" Caleb mistook the stillness for fear. Thomas laughed. "Bring it on. Touch me. I dare you." Enraged, Caleb lunged and grabbed Thomas's collar, throwing a punch. Thomas dropped his head, and Caleb's fist slammed into Thomas's hard forehead. As Caleb staggered back, clutching his hand, Thomas seized the opening and planted a fist right in the middle of Caleb's face. Caleb shrieked and collapsed, blood gushing from his nose. "Don't get cocky," Caleb spit, backing away. "I'll have people find you and kill you." "Is that so?" A cold, familiar voice cut through the air. Sarah was standing a few yards away in a power suit. Caleb turned pale. Sarah walked forward, the sound of her heels like a metronome for his doom. Without breaking stride, she lifted her leg, and her stiletto drew an arc through the air, connecting hard with Caleb's torso. Caleb was launched into the air, crashing into a planter and falling unconscious. Sarah turned to Thomas, the fury melting into anxiety. "Thomas, baby, are you okay? Did he hurt you?" She handled him with gentleness, straightening his collar. Back at home, Sarah decided Thomas wasn't safe at the house alone. "I'm taking you to my best friend Maya's house," she said. The next morning, she dropped him off at a luxurious villa, giving him a quick kiss before leaving. Maya-chan opened the door in messy pajamas, gave him an indifferent glance, and went back to her phone on the sofa. The house was a mess. By 1 in the afternoon, Thomas was starving. He went to the kitchen, found some eggs, beef, and rice, and made a savory fried rice. The aroma drew Maya in like a cat. "What are you making?" she asked, eyes wide. After one bite, her eyes lit up. She devoured the plate. "Oh my God, you're amazing. Are you cooking again tomorrow?" "I'm craving short ribs." In the following days, Thomas and Maya became fast friends, bonding over video games and his cooking. One afternoon, Thomas asked, "Is it true about Sarah's old flame, Caleb?" Maya waved her hand in disgust. "Caleb? He's like gum on a shoe." Sarah couldn't stand him. She leaned in. "Sarah isn't the pampered girl you think. She was in 8th grade when the Reeds finally found her and brought her home. She'd been living on her own before that." Thomas's heart skipped a beat. This was like a movie. Just then, Sarah texted, "Want to see a movie tonight?" Maya saw the screen and yelled, "I'm going too. No dates without your favorite third wheel." That evening, the three met at the theater. Sarah and Maya turned every head as they walked. Thomas trailed behind, carrying the popcorn. He looked up, and his appetite vanished. It was Caleb Vance again, a flash of hatred in his eyes as he looked at Thomas. But then his gaze shifted to the women behind him. Thomas and Caleb stood face to face, but the arrogant fire in Caleb's eyes was instantly extinguished the moment he saw Sarah and Maya. He shrank back like a mouse that had just spotted a cat. Maya, never one to let things slide, stepped forward with her arms crossed and her chin tilted up. Well, if it isn't the great Caleb Vance, here to see a movie." Caleb looked extremely uncomfortable, forcing a dry laugh. "Yeah, what a coincidence. Just waiting for someone." Even a blind man could see he was lying. Sarah didn't even bother to look at him. She simply took my hand, led me around him, and walked straight into the screening room. Throughout the movie, Sarah's hand never let go of mine, holding it tight in the darkness. My mind, however, kept replaying the scene outside. Once as an accident, twice as a coincidence, but this was the third time. How did he always know exactly where we were? It was as if someone was feeding him information. The movie was forgettable, but Maya emerged acting as if she'd had a religious experience. "No way am I eating out," she shouted as soon as we hit the lobby. "Restaurant food is all chemicals and sadness. I need your cooking, Thomas." She grabbed my arm, refusing to take no for an answer. Sarah watched with a resigned smile and finally nodded. Back at the penthouse, both women insisted on helping in the kitchen. Within 5 minutes, chaos descended. "Maya, you splattered hot oil on me." Sarah yelled, "Don't pour the entire bottle of soy sauce in there." I watched Maya hold a cucumber like it was a live grenade and finally marched in to shoo them out. They didn't mind being scolded. They just collapsed onto the sofa, laughing as they waited to be fed. Half an hour later, a four-course meal was on the table. Maya dug in immediately, her cheeks stuffed with food. Sarah's movements were more elegant, but as she tasted the sweet and sour pork, her eyes widened in shock. "Thomas," she said seriously, "when did you learn to cook like this?" I felt bashful under her gaze. "I can just make a few simple home-style dishes," I replied. She didn't say more, but she silently ate half a bowl more rice than usual. After Maya went home, Sarah and I got into bed, but the light mood had evaporated. She lay staring at the ceiling, her brow furrowed. "Something's wrong," she said suddenly. "How did Caleb know which restaurant we were going to? How was he at the exact same theater?" Her voice turned cold. "Besides you, there's only one person who knows my exact schedule, my executive assistant, Julian." A chilling frostiness crept into Sarah's eyes. "I need to find out what this mole is really after." The coldness vanished the moment she pulled me into her arms, resting her chin on my head. "I'm thinking," she whispered, "about how I'm going to protect my darling husband and make sure no one ever bullies you again." The next day, while I was at Maya's playing games, my phone rang. It was Sarah, but her voice was as cold as a machine. "You and Maya get to my office now." When I asked what happened, she replied, "Come watch the fireworks. It's going to be a big show." We rushed to the company. The atmosphere in Sarah's office was suffocating. She sat behind her massive desk, eyes glittering with an icy light. "Today, I decided to test Julian," she began quietly. "I told him he had to shadow my every move. This afternoon, he told me he needed to take a private call. I followed him to a storage closet and heard him talking to Caleb." Maya clenched her fists as Sarah continued. "Caleb told him, 'Julian, honey, help me one last time. If this works, you'll be the one running the show.' Then Caleb laid out his plan. He told Julian to drug my drink. Then he would show up and they would consummate things whether I wanted to or not." An uncontrollable rage surged within me. I hadn't cared about being a placeholder, but this was vile. That traitor. Maya slammed her hand on the table. "You treated him so well." Sarah smiled, but it was a dangerous, sharp edge. "What's the point of just being angry? I want them to walk right into the pit I've dug for them, and then I'm going to bury them in it." The plan was set into motion. As the workday ended, Sarah called Julian into the office. "Could you go downstairs and get me a coffee? An espresso, double shot." When he returned with the drink, she sent him away to organize archives. Once he was gone, she ushered us into the private lounge. "Watch this," she whispered with a sly wink. When Julian returned, Sarah took a theatrical sip of the coffee. A few seconds later, she pressed a hand to her forehead. "I feel a little dizzy. I'm going to lie down. Don't disturb me." Julian's eyes flashed with triumph as she stumbled into the lounge. We waited in silence until the door creaked open. It was Caleb, rubbing his hands together and muttering about the security guards who had tossed him. "Once I'm done with Sarah, I'll dump that stupid assistant," he chuckled. Maya almost leaped up, but I held her down. Caleb scanned the room, landing on the bed, but his smile froze solid. He saw the bed was empty, and on the sofa, the three of us sat in a row like judges presiding over his doom. He spun to dash for the door, but police officers stormed in, pinning him to the floor. "I didn't do anything," he babbled. Sarah rose slowly, playing back a recording of his call with Julian. "The wrong room?" she asked, her voice like chips of ice. With Sarah's legal team on the case, Caleb was sentenced to 5 years for attempted rape and harassment. Julian was convicted as an accomplice and received 3 years. None of that was my problem anymore. That night, back in our own bed, the question I'd had for months finally bubbled up. "Honey, why did you ever agree to go on a blind date with me?" Sarah shifted, a mischievous smile playing on her lips. "Who said I was there for a blind date? I was there for you." I was stunned. "For me? Do we know each other?" She pressed a finger to my lips. "Northwood Junior High, 8th grade." Those words struck like lightning. I remembered a girl in my class who wore worn-out clothes and skipped lunch. I had been a cocky teenager with a generous allowance, and I'd told her I'd take care of her meals. I bought her lunch for a year and even bought her clothes. Her name was Autumn, but when 9th grade started, she vanished. I shot up in bed, staring at the radiant CEO in front of me. You're that girl? The one who looked like a little stray puppy." Sarah laughed, her eyes crinkling. "Puberty hit me like a truck, I guess." She sat up, straddling my lap. "Life in the top 1% is really something, huh?" The transformation is so complete, I didn't even recognize you, I said, genuinely impressed. Any lingering awkwardness about being a kept man evaporated. I wasn't a trophy. I was an angel investor, and this was my return on investment. So you finally remember, she whispered against my ear. But it's getting late, honey. It's time for some overtime. I have to properly repay you for all your kindness. The next morning, my back ached again, but my heart was full of sweetness. In the days that followed, our relationship grew even closer. The only problem was Maya, who had designated our penthouse as her private cafeteria. One evening, Sarah teased her, "You come here every day? Are you sure you don't have a crush on my Thomas?" Maya choked on her water, her face turning bright red. "No way. What are you thinking?" She looked me up and down. "At most, I just want to kidnap him and make him my personal chef for life." Under the warm lights, our laughter filled the penthouse with joy.